Okay, hey guys, it's Paul over here on the second channel. I wanted to talk a little bit about Yu-Gi-Oh! Fun Decks and sort of, I guess, how weird it can be. As always, is kind of just sort of off the dome, but this was inspired by one of my local sort of communities, the local Yu-Gi-Oh! Community around here. They were planning a fun deck tournament for the weekend, and so basically it was going to be this tournament where you can't play competitive decks, or you can't play meta decks or whatever. So we're just going to all show up and bring our fun decks and play, and that was the idea. And it's an interesting one because it led to some like small controversy. Nothing like crazy. People weren't killing each other or anything like that, but um, there was a bit of like conflict over like what is a fun deck. And so they made like this list of cards and strategies and like decks and stuff that you couldn't use. Obviously included, like maybe Drytron's Virtual World, Eldritch, but also a number of other cards and archetypes and decks. And then like, maybe you can't play like an FTK deck or, no floodgates, that type of thing. And so it just kind of got me thinking, what exactly is a Yu-Gi-Oh! Fun deck? It's something that I've always had my own personal idea about, but I think it really does vary from person to person. Much like how the idea of like tiers varies from person to person. I know like some people have like, oh, tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, rogue, tier 3, whatever. So fun decks are interesting because fun in Yu-Gi-Oh, of course, is subjective, and I really think that the more I play this game, the more I realize that fun means so many different things to so many different people that the idea of really even making or trying to make like a tournament where the rules are like, okay, you can only play fun decks is almost just broken by design. I mean, you're not going to be able to really satisfy a lot of people because there are so many decks where I feel like, they like even if you take the top tier decks out of the picture, there's still going to be like another sort of rung of the ladder of really strong decks that will sort of oppress anything underneath them, and like so on and so forth. And Yu-Gi-Oh, especially in recent years, has like gone even further in that direction, where I feel like the disparity between like good and bad decks kind of just slowly but steadily has increased over the years, and so it gets rough. And then what I want to talk about more so today is like what defines a fun deck for you. There are a lot of aspects to this. I guess I'll break them down. So the first one is hand traps. That's obviously a really popular thing today. Can you use hand traps in a fun deck, right? Like Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Against meta decks like Drytrons or Virtual World, one Ash Blossom isn't going to like completely halt their turn or anything. But against a lot of fun decks or lower tier decks, one Ash Blossom oftentimes is enough to stop an entire turn at times. They might need the one, their deck might be inconsistent and they might need like that one search. And if it gets Ash, their turn just kind of has to end, and that's the end of it. Same goes for other hand traps. Nobody really enjoys playing against like 12 hand traps unless it's in a tournament. So is that like fun? Are hand traps allowed? Or should you just be sort of forced to use regular traps or maybe whatever your deck can offer in terms of defense instead of running like triple Ash, triple Gamma, triple Imperm, triple, Ghost Ogre, Veiler, Ghost Spell, just a bunch of hand traps. Like, is that, fun? And then another thing that comes up a lot too for me is staples. Specifically the really powerful kind of like board altering staples. Cards like Lightning Storm, cards like Evenly Matched, and cards like Dark Ruler No More. And, there are a few others where these things that just wipe the board. It depends on what you're looking for in a fun duel, which I'll get to in a second. But you know, I feel like those cards can be quite polarizing. If we're both playing fun low tier decks, but then like somebody gets evenly matched or whatever, or lightning stormed, like are we still having fun if someone's board just got nuked and they just kind of lost everything? And since they're not playing a meta deck, it's not like they're going to be able to easily recover it, or you know what I mean? So that's another thing. And then also like where do floodgates come into the picture? There can be only one, goes in match, Imperial Order, Mistake, like Macrocosmos, all these cards that, just completely shut out a certain game mechanic, right? Are those like fun? I mean, currently those aren't really, a lot of those cards aren't really played in the top tier decks, but does that mean that they should be allowed in a fun tournament, a fun duel? Like, is it fun to face floodgates? For some people, it's fun to use floodgates. Is it fun to face them? Maybe not, but like, who are we to tell those people that, you know what I mean? Like, it gets really complicated. And the last really major one is generic extra deck monsters. VFD, right? Borreload Savage, recently AA Zeus. These cards, Apollosa, Access Code Talker, even Borrelsword Dragon in some cases. Are these cards fun to face? Because a lot of them are like more or less generic, not really belonging to any archetype, and any deck can make them. And even my Tenyi deck or the Samora deck or something like Melfi's or whatever that you might consider to be like a low tier deck can still make some of these monsters and just like end the game with that. So do you allow those? And at that point, if you're taking all of these cards, let's assume that like all the hand traps and then all those generic extract monsters and all the floodgates and all the staples aren't allowed. So surely now you can have a fun, honest game. All right, so now then, what is a fun and honest game of Yu-Gi-Oh? I think for most people, it feels that it's this idea of kind of like going back and forth. A lot of people complain about Yu-Gi-Oh duels being over like in 1 or 2 turns. You go first, you make a crazy board, and that's usually enough to shut your opponent out. But the truth is, that's not something that's like really exclusive to meta decks. Like Drytron or Virtual World can certainly do that to you, but there are also like plenty of decks that are, what do they call them? Just sort of like, wombo combo decks that if they open with the right things, they can still take a 10-minute turn and just end on a bunch of crazy stuff. A great example that I had of a deck I'm actually playing right now is Madolche. Madolche have some rather long combos. It involves quite a lot of searching, quite a lot of shuffling, quite a lot of summoning from deck and repeating and returning things back into... The combos are long, right? Like when I play Madolche, I have to literally sit and try to remember these combos. But I don't know that most people would consider Madolche to be like a meta deck. It certainly isn't like winning any tournaments or even really doing well at all. It just has long combos. Is that like part of the fun? Is the fun the length of time that the combo takes? Madolche's turns are long, but they don't actually end on a super powerful board. They typically have like 1 or 2 disruptions, a small type of protection. It's nothing overly crazy. And I'd say it's really easy to interrupt with hand traps present. But then like if hand traps aren't present, then like maybe Madolche's more oppressive because it's harder to stop. But like, I don't really know. Would you say Madolche's fun? Is it not fun? Is it more, like what is the line in the sand here? Because I do think that while Madolche certainly isn't a deck that's like beating meta decks anytime soon, not often, I'd still say it's like better than Tenyi. That's another deck I've played, which is just a significantly and pretty obviously lower power level deck. So should they both really be able to play in the same like fun deck tournament? Would that be fair? Tenyis just don't do as much as Madolche does, and Madolche doesn't even do as much as like let's say like Infernoble Knights do, which like Infernoble Knights, they've gotten hit on the ban list. They're not as popular now, but like they're distinctly stronger than many other decks still. So where's the bar here? And that's why I feel like it's almost antithetical to even like do fun deck tournaments, because I think fundamentally with a tournament, the goal is to win. And so even if you make like a custom ban list, and as we've talked about this whole video, agreeing on a custom ban list between many different players in a community is really hard. But even if like you can make something of a custom ban list that most people agree on, so then the goal becomes not so much to have fun, but to like find the strongest possible deck within those constraints. So if you say that I can't use this, or this archetype, this, or this card, okay, well, what can I squeeze in that I can use? And so it really gets sticky, and it's kind of one of those things where it sort of cements the fact that Yu-Gi-Oh players, we don't always really know what we need, what we want, what we need. Sometimes it's better that Konami just makes a ban list. Sometimes it's better that we maybe don't have like a fun deck format. Now, personally, I still wish that type of stuff could happen, but I think that Konami would still need to be present in deciding like what is and isn't allowed. Because as much as people do say Konami sucks at like managing this game, and I don't think they're perfect, I think that if you try to put that in the hands of the players, you'll never get anywhere, because we can disagree all day long on like what is considered fun and what is considered not so fun, and like where those where those nuances occur. I just think it's really hard. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. I kind of want to know, what do you guys think is fun, in your opinion? What is fun in Yu-Gi-Oh? Is it a type of game, like a play style? Is it just a matter of deck tiers? Can somebody play for fun using a Drytron deck that doesn't run Ben 10 and like vanities and stuff like that, and it just is pure Drytron? Is that more fun or not? Like, what are sort of your limits and your restraints, and maybe include some examples. Yeah. All right, I've gone on long enough. That's it for the video. Hopefully you guys liked it. I'll see you guys maybe in the next discussion. Pass turn.